Welcome to a powerful new section of the course. This is where everything starts to shift. We've laid the foundation of motivation, built your mindset and mental strength, and now we're entering the arena where most people struggle every day: procrastination. If you've ever stared at your to-do list, knowing exactly what you should do and still didn't do it, you're not lazy. You're not broken. You're human. And today, I want to show you why. Not with judgment, but with clarity. Because once you understand the real psychological triggers behind procrastination, you'll finally be able to shift from delay into action. Let's begin with the biggest misconception about procrastination, that it's a time management problem. It's not. It's not about your calendar or your app or how early you wake up. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem. It's your brain trying to protect you from discomfort, from failure, from stress, from uncertainty. That's right. Every time you procrastinate, your brain is doing exactly what it's wired to do: avoid pain and seek relief. You're not lazy. You're seeking safety. Let's make this real. Think of a task you've been putting off. Maybe it's a workout, a difficult conversation, a business idea you've had for months. You're not avoiding the task itself. You're avoiding the feeling you associate with it. Maybe it's fear of failing. Maybe it's overwhelm. Maybe it's not feeling good enough to even start. So, what does your brain do? It scans for relief. A scroll on your phone. A snack. A sudden urge to clean the kitchen. Anything that gives you a hit of dopamine and lets you escape the discomfort, even for a moment. And here's the catch. The more often you escape, the more your brain learns to procrastinate. It becomes a habit loop. Discomfort. Escape. Relief. Repeat. That's why it feels automatic. Because it is. Let's go deeper. There are 5 core psychological triggers that drive most procrastination. Understanding these is like turning on the lights in a room you've been fumbling around in for years. The first trigger is perfectionism. This is when your standard is so high, it paralyzes you. You tell yourself, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. So you wait. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect energy, the perfect plan. But perfection never comes and action never happens. You're stuck in limbo. And the deeper reason? Perfectionism is often rooted in fear of judgment, of making mistakes, of not being good enough. The second trigger is fear of failure. You might say, what if I try and fail? But often, what you really fear is what failure would mean about you. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding the identity crisis that might come with not succeeding. And so you delay. Because as long as you haven't started, you haven't failed. It's twisted, but it feels safe. The third trigger is lack of clarity. If you're overwhelmed by a task, it's usually not because it's too hard. It's because it's too vague. Your brain can't process uncertainty. If your plan is fuzzy, get fit, build a website, write a book, your brain will resist it. Why? Because it doesn't know where to start. And when you don't know where to start, you don't start at all. The fourth trigger is low emotional energy. When you're tired, burned out, or emotionally depleted, even the smallest tasks feel like climbing a mountain. And your brain, being efficient, chooses the path of least resistance. That's not weakness. It's biology. And finally, the fifth trigger is instant gratification. Your brain is wired for short-term reward. When given the choice between long-term growth and immediate pleasure, it chooses the latter unless you train it otherwise. That's why you reach for your phone, binge a show, or scroll endlessly instead of working on something meaningful. These 5 triggers, perfectionism, fear, vagueness, exhaustion, and distraction, are not signs of failure. They're signals. Signals that something needs attention, not punishment. So what do we do with all this? First, we pause. We get curious instead of critical. When you catch yourself procrastinating, ask, what am I trying to avoid right now? What feeling am I escaping from? Bring it into the light. Because the moment you name it, it loses its power. Then we shift our focus. From outcome to action. From pressure to process. You don't have to finish the whole project. You just have to begin. One step, one task, one moment of courage. Let me tell you a story. One of my students, Marcus, had a dream of launching an online business. He had the skills, the ideas, but he never started. Every week, he'd promise himself he'd make progress. Every week, nothing changed. When we looked deeper, we found a cocktail of procrastination triggers: fear of failure, perfectionism, and emotional exhaustion from his day job. Instead of forcing action, we addressed the triggers. He rewrote his definition of failure. He embraced imperfection as a path, not a threat. He scheduled deep rest before deep work. And most importantly, he created a simple rule: I don't start big, I start now. He began by outlining a single page, then designing one product, then building one email. Each micro step built momentum. And within 60 days, he had a functioning business and a new identity, someone who follows through. That shift didn't come from more motivation. It came from awareness, from understanding the psychology behind his patterns. And that's the power you now hold. So here's what I want you to take away from this lesson. Procrastination isn't a personality trait. It's not who you are. It's a habit, a response to discomfort. And like all habits, it can be changed. But not through shame, not through willpower alone, through understanding, through practice, through self-compassion. The next time you find yourself stuck, don't say, "What's wrong with me?" Instead, say, "What's my brain trying to protect me from right now?" Because the moment you meet your patterns with curiosity, you gain power over them. In the next lessons, I'll show you practical tools to dismantle each of these triggers. You'll learn how to break through perfectionism, how to handle overwhelm, how to train your brain to favor long-term growth over short-term distraction. But for now, just begin with awareness. Catch yourself in the loop. Name the feeling, name the fear, then breathe, and choose one small action anyway. Progress isn't about force. It's about momentum. And momentum begins with understanding. You've got this.